Okay, so now that you've found a quiet place, you found a quiet time, you have 2 hours where you won't be interrupted, and you could take the exam, we thought we'd talk about our approaches to studying for the exam and getting ready. Okay, so first of all, Yana, what kinds of questions are on the exam?
So there are multiple choice questions and then the fill in the blanks.
Right, so the fill in the blanks is like a sentence, right, that has a piece of it missing, and you need to know that piece of information that comes from the reading materials or your knowledge of the course to show that you've been paying attention, you know what you're talking about, right? And so um, that's what we mean when we say fill in the blanks. Sometimes students want to know how many answers there are on the multiple choice questions to choose from because students have strong preferences about the differences between choosing from 4 options or choosing from 5. So
we have 4 options.
This is a 4-option exam. I hope that's the one you like.
Hopefully not as confusing.
That's what we have. So hopefully that's what you're hoping for. And we tried to write the questions in a way that really tests your exam, your knowledge, rather than trying to kind of confuse you and trick you with, those tricky questions like, I think there's some all of the aboves and none of the aboves, but there aren't those like A and C above, or is it A, B, and C? Or is that, at least there's not, above, if there are a few of those, there are not that many. That's not most of the questions are just trying to get at, your knowledge of the material. And so that's the thing. Okay, so you know that's what kinds of questions that you have. And so I have questions about how should you approach the material?
So definitely go over the modules, the content of it. And I also found that supplementary videos are really helpful. If I'm doing like laundry or dishes, I can just have it on and then that could be my studying guide for the exam. But remember that it is a supplementary video.
Right, so the supplementary videos are designed to facilitate your learning. Not everybody is very text-oriented in their learning, and so we thought we'd have a PowerPoint slides and more of a traditional lecture format. So it's something you can put on your earbuds and have it sort of trigger all the things that you've already learned, right? If you've gone over the modules and you've taken the quizzes, then it will help you remember the key points of what each module is supposed to deliver. So listening to the supplementary videos is a good tip.
Yeah.
When you're studying for an exam, right, and you have the modules as materials, you have the readings as materials, what's your actual practice for doing revisions? Like, do you rewrite out new notes, or do you take your notes from when you originally did the module and sort of go over them? What's your strategy?
So for multiple choice questions, I actually try to make a question for myself. I usually find that if I know the key points of a certain section of the module, or even from the textbook, if there is a bolded word that is a definition, I guess definitions provided, that's usually a good idea to go over it again. And if you try to make a question, you can kind of think in the mind of a question maker. And I thought it's almost like teaching myself that content again.
Yeah. So that's a hot tip. I want to just reiterate that the terms that the textbook identifies as key terms or kind of new terms that maybe you might not be familiar with are printed in bold in the textbook. I hope it's also the same in the e-textbook. I think it probably is.
I hope so.
And so those terms, you're going to want to know what they are. You're going to want to know also why they're important, right? So I always recommend that students take this kind of tiered approach to understanding the material, right? And so you have the course that's on sociology of sexualities, and then we've broken it down into modules, right? Which is topics, or which are kind of themes, right? And then each theme has these 3 or 4 topics, right? And so, if you're thinking of a term like social construction of sexuality, that's a key idea because you know that it is a whole module dedicated to it and it has component pieces. If you have a topic within that of understanding like the particularities of the historical growth of a particular kind of sexual identity, like, okay, that fits in with our understanding of social construction. And then if you have like a term that might be bolded in the text, like heteronormativity, then understanding the definition of that term is one amount of learning that's going to be assessed on the exam, but you're also going to want to know how that relates to the other levels of learning that we've kind of nested within each other. So you're going to want to know how that relates to the topic, how that relates to the weekly module, and give some thought about kind of the overarching themes. Like, this isn't a final exam yet, but when you get to the final exam, you're going to want to have these kind of lessons of the class that are kind of the big ideas of class that you're taking away from the class. So I'd say learn the little stuff, but understand also how they relate to the bigger things.
And same goes for the external links and any articles that are embedded in the content. And same goes for fill in the blanks, how you study for it. I would have the same approach.
Right, it's probably going to be those same kind of key terms that we're looking for in those fill in the blank questions. Same way that you would prepare for the exam, right? Why don't you talk a little bit about your approach to the learning the linked readings as opposed to the textbook? And then I'm gonna just pop over here and get the textbook and show them something.
Okay. So for the external links, I find it better if you actually read it after the section that it was related to is done, instead of waiting till the end of the module to read them all together. Because if you read it right after that specific section, you're gonna be in a mindset that it's gonna be fresh for you. So when you're reading the article, that you can relate it better to the course content and then make the connection better. And also when you're reading the external articles, it's a little different format than textbooks. So just make sure that like what is the theme of the article and how does that relate to the course content, rather than trying to be maybe too nitpicky on the details.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Okay, and when it comes to studying from the textbook, right, there's also going to be a lot of questions from there, I really recommend these resources at the end of each chapter. So this is, for example, chapter 3. You probably can't see this, but refer to your own textbook, where it has key terms and concepts pulled out for you. It has sort of critical thinking questions. And so one of the things that I would recommend, and this is going to be our final tip for this video, is to use that key terms and concepts as a way to quiz yourself, right? So if you go through that list and you have snappy definitions for each one, you're going to ace the midterm exam. You're going to be fine. But if you find yourself kind of not really like sort of having a general vague understanding, or maybe needing more specifics about a particular term, go back and look it up in the test. That's an excellent way to prepare for the exam.
Yeah. Also, another tip would be teach someone else who doesn't know about the course, right?
Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.